we had looked at the tax value ajoute, and we described it, and we looked at the two types of tax value ajoute. So in a case of an enterprise charges its customers tax, and and the government charges the enterprise tax. So TVA is revenue for the government. And we looked at the percentages for the tax and the transactions which concern it. So firstly, we had taux normal, which is 20%. So we have situations where they don't even indicate, they just give you a taux. They just say, ajouter aussi les tax value ajoutées. So in such a situation, where you're not given which taux to use specifically, you are supposed to use the taux normal, which is 20%. So then we looked at the second one, which was 14%, which is 14%, which is charged on opération de transport, électricité, and assurance. So someone abbreviated this one as T, transport, TEA. So the T standing for transport, the E standing for electricity, and the A standing for assurance. And moving on to the 10%. So 10% is charged onto bank operations. So this one we can strictly summarize it as 10% is charged onto banking operations. And we have 7%. So 7% is the last one, and it's charged on goods I would say to be basic needs. So these basic needs are pharmaceutical products. We have milk, we have water, we have school fees. So these are basic needs. So charged at a rate of 7%. Then we looked at this example, if I'm not mistaken. So 10,000 is the MBA, the MB, montant brut, and we have 10% remise. So the difference between those two is called net commercial, which is 9,000. And escompte is at a rate of 2%. So we know that escompte is a charge financier, is a réduction financière. So what the difference between the figure above and the réduction financière is going to give us is net financier. So net financier, NF, which is 8,000. 2% of 9,000 is 180. And the difference between those two is 8,820. So we have calculated all the way onto our NF, the net commercial, net financier, sorry. So the thing is, all the figures you have, or all the calculations you have, before you have added the TVA, they're called hot tax. So they are outside tax. And when we add our TVA, the figure we have is net à payer, also known as TTC, toute taxe comprise. So, hope I'm clear with the récapitulatif de tout ce qu'on a fait l'autre fois. Now we advance on to, I think it's just going to, so I repeat myself, immediately we are done with the facture. That will mark the end for all economics students. So I would ask you guys to leave. But if you so wish to stay and see what we're doing, which is unusual, ça va avec moi. So, excuse me?
Excuse me, Chole. Last time
Yes.
we talked about the two types of TVA, the TVA facture and récupérable. Oui. Can you please differentiate those two again?
Okay, so here we have an issue of, there's one where, so we have three parties involved. We have, I'm coming just a minute. I have a knock at the door. I'll be back in a minute. Sorry for that. Okay, so I restart my explanation. We have three parties involved in the TVR. We have the government, we have shops, markets, enterprises, TUSA, and we have lastly the clients. So what happens is that shops charge the client's TVR. So shops get the TVR from clients, from people, from consumers, basic consumers. So there's a type of TVR which will mark as A. Then we have the government. The government also charges enterprises TVR for bringing in goods, for producing goods. They charge TVR for everything. So, and for that as well, we have another type. So we have A and B. I'm not sure if you want me to give you the names of the two. That will not confuse you, or maybe I can just leave it at this point.
No, just like this is okay.
Okay, so moving on to what we are going to start with today. We are going to start the segment for the transport. So the transport is a majoration because it adds on to the price of the already bought goods. So in a situation where, so under transport, we have two main situations. We have the first one where the enterprise or business has a transporting means. They have some delivery services that they themselves own. And the second one is the enterprise has no transportation means, but they do offer delivery services through other agencies. So for the second one, we have an intermediate working, which is a transportation agency, which would be something like CTM in Morocco. It's a bus service, or ONCF, the train service. So we have two main subsections under the transport. So for the first one is pretty clear. For the first type, which is when the agency has a transporting means themselves. So the first one is pretty easy because everything works simply under the total amount they'll charge you would be easy to calculate because they charge you from the figure themselves. They know how much the fuel will cost, how much the transporting will cost. So that figure is fixed. And for the first situation, the transport is charged on a rate of 20% TVA. So for this, basically TVA for each and everything, each and every service, each and every product we buy, we pay TVA. So for this type, the enterprise charges its clients a rate of 20% of the actual goods, the actual cost of goods. So hope that's clear with this type of TVA. Then we have accounts involved, but I think this is just going to confuse you more. So I'll just try to explain the main idea in these two. So moving on to the second one. So the second one is where I said the business does offer transportation, delivery services, but they themselves do not have a transporting means. They don't have a vehicle, they don't have a van to transport. So what they do is that they hire another company to transport their goods for them. So for this situation, in this situation, we have another company involved. So the price is not determined by the company we are buying from, but by the transporting company. But so what happens is that let's say Majan, I'll give you practical examples. So we have the enterprise being Majan, and we have our transporting agency being ONCF or CTM, and we have a client. So a client buys, let's say, a fridge from Majan, and he asks Majan to deliver it to a certain destination. So what happens is that Majan will, if they do not have a transporting agent, they will hire CTM or ONCF to transport it for them. So Marjan will cover the extra cost. So they'll pay for the transport, but what you would receive on your facture is an addition for the transport that they paid for you, because nothing is for free in the world of business. So here, but there's an advantage to this one in that you are charged TVA at a rate of 14%. So like we looked at previously, where we said transport and électricité, ils sont chargés de 14%. We have transport, électricité, assurance. They are charged at 14% TVA. This is the 14% they meant above. So what happens here is that you yourself is going to pay for the transport, but at a later date, when transporting the goods there, and then the enterprise is going to pay for the cost for you. Then you are going to have to pay the enterprise back at a later date. So that's it with the two types of transporting. So when it comes to questions on how you distinguish whether they themselves have a transporting agency or not, they are clearly written in the transactions. So like this one where we have, if you can draw your attention onto this application here, we have vente à crédit des marchandises au client, salaire, montant brut de remise à 5%, TVA à 20%, à transport régulé en espèces de 500, TVA, porte 14%. So here we have transport réglé en espèces, and we have 500. Then they continue to say TVA, port. You're not recording. So we have the TVA poursuit 14%. So here we are clearly told that the TVA was charged to us by a rate of 14%. So by this transaction, we know that the business themselves did not have a transporting means, so they hired a transporting agency to do the work for them. So hope that's clear with the distinction between the two. And if there are any questions, please ask.
Cholo,
Where?
could you kindly re-explain on the difference when there is transport and when there is no transport?
Okay. So drawing back to what we had on top, we have two main types of means of transporting. So we have the first one where practical, I'll explain this one as practical examples. So the first one is a situation where Marjan has vehicles, they have vehicles to transport the goods. They themselves have vehicles that they own to transport the goods to the desired destination of clients. And we have the second one where Marjan doesn't have a transporting means. So what they do is that they hire a transporting agency. So in this case, we have, in the Moroccan system, we have CTM, we have ONCF, and other small ones. So the main difference between these two is the TVA you are charged is, well, in the calculations, it's just strictly on the TVA. So in the situation where Marjan, the first situation where Marjan has a transporting means, so they transport their goods themselves to the desired destination, they charge the rate of the transport at 20%. So the TVA for the transport is 20%. So hope I'm clear with the first one. Drawing on to the second one, we have, what will happen is that Marjan will pay CTM in advance. They'll pay CTM in advance to deliver the goods to you. So when the goods come to you with the receipt or with the facture, to you, what happens is that you are going to pay for the whole price. So you're going to pay for what Majan paid for you for the transport. So there's nothing for free here. It's not that Majan will pay for the transport for you and you come up on a clean sheet. No, you're going to have to repay back Majan. So what will happen? And with this one, where Majan uses another transporting agency, you are charged the TVA at a rate of 14%. So hope that's clear this time for between those two. So it's just in terms of calculation, it's just the TVA which varies, but you just have to have that background knowledge of what's really happening in a transaction.
It's clear, thank you.
Okay, je pass. So moving on to what we call les emballages. So les emballages are packagings. So les emballages are packagings, and it can be a bottle, a wrapper, a crate. Whatever we package goods in is termed as les emballages. So firstly, we have two main types of emballage aussi. We have les emballages perdus and les emballages récupérables. So les emballages perdus these are packagings which are completely lost, which
Excuse me, Chole.
okay?
I'm sorry to take you back, but then on the example that we had for transport, that a bit up, yes, before we start the emballage.
Okay. So I think
Yes.
the example we looked at was
The one with
this
MB
one.
as yes. Yes. Can you please show us how you put the transport? Because I think I only understand up to the 20% TVA, but then how does the transport come in? This 500. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I skipped that. Sorry, I skipped out that part. So there's a worked out example here, which I'm just going to run through quickly with you. So you can either do it two ways. Okay, here's a complete facture. So firstly, we had le montant brut as 25,000, and the first thing we have is le remise, which is 5% of 25,000, which is 1,250. And the difference between the two will give us a net commercial of 23,750. So up to there, I hope we are clear. So what happens here is that if our transport was charged at a rate of 20%, but in this case, we have 14%. So the 14%, there was a figure which was given to us strictly as transport. So we have here transport réglé en espèces de 500. So what we're going to do is we're going to find 14% of this 500. So here we have two TVAs. We have the TVA normal, which is always there, and we have the port TVA, which is 14%. So how you're going to put those two differently is that when you find the net commercial, you are going to have to net commercial. So in this case, it can either be net commercial, net financier. When you calculate the last reduction, so you're going to find the TVA, the 20% TVA for the last figure you found. So if we had NF, we're going to find it for NF. If we had NC, we're going to find it for NC. But in this case, we have NC, so 23,750, and 20% of that is 4,750. But this, oh, for me, these are majorations. So you really have to pay attention to, I know it starts with subtractions, then it changes to addition. So the reduction, we strictly subtract them. And the majoration, we add them onto the figure we have above. So we had net commercial was 23,750. And we're going to have to find 20% of that figure. So that is 4,750. It's 20%. So you just leave the figure there. And transport is a majoration, and it's a majoration in its nature. So, and the amount we had was 500. So 500, you're going to have to add the 500 there. Then TVA is an addition onto an actual price we are supposed to pay. So here we have, and we were given 14% of 500, which is 70. So you're going to have three things here. You have the TVA normal, which is 4,750. We have the transport, which is 500. And lastly, we have the TVA, which is at 14%, which is 70. So you're going to add these three first. You can either add these three first, get a figure, then add it to then your net commercial, or you can just add them all together to get the TTC, the toute taxe comprise. So hope that's clear for that one. Then we move on to the other one, just a quick illustration. So that was the first example. So after we establish this, we always do what is called comptabilisation, which is putting the transactions into a journal. But I think this would come at a later time, because you have to understand the journals pretty well and have the accounts in your head. Because these transports suivants are état TVA récupérable. They're all found in the plan comptable. So it's just an issue of knowing which transaction is concerned and knowing how you are going to write it down, like if it's going to be debited or credited. So this was the facture for the first example. I think there should be one below. So when you are asked to comptabilize it, like before we used to do it pour le fournisseur and pour le client. So these things that are on the libellé, these are things that you are supposed to already know. So I plead with you to try to memorize the plan comptable. It's really important. So like we did it for le fournisseur, we have to do it pour le client aussi. Oui, c'est ça. So we have this one where transport is charged at a rate of 20%. So I think this one is going to help you see how the calculations differ. So this one, I think we have an exercise, and we have this one, application. It says vente de marchandises au client Hamza à crédit montant 28 000, remise 4%, transport facturé, forfait à 500, TVA 20%. So here, the difference, if you can notice any difference between this application and the first one above, is that here you only have the TVA mentioned once. So they did not specify whether it's TVA for les marchandises seulement or TVA pour le transport seulement. But what we know is that we have TVA. So in this situation, you know that we have two TVAs. We know that this should just be background understanding. We know that we are supposed to charge TVA for the marchandise and TVA for the transport. But if they are charged at the same percentage, you might as well just add the two. the figures would be wrong if we treat each of them individually. So you just treat it, you just charge everything at a rate of 20%, not 40, not, so you don't say no because merchandise is also charged at a rate of 20%. So 20 plus 20, 40, no, you charge them at the same figure, 20%. So you charge them as a total. So this thing is going to be established comme ça. We have le montant brut, which is 28,000. And we have our first réduction commerciale, which is remise, and charged at a rate of 4%, which is 1,120. And the difference between the two is net commercial, which is 26,880. So what we have here is our dernier net commercial as 26,880. And transport is a majoration. So here, if you are able to remember the previous example, when we found the net commercial, we had to find 20% of the net commercial. But in this case, they're all charged at a figure of 20%. So we'll not have to find that distinction between the two. So we have net commercial 26,880, and we have transport 400. So you just need to add the two to give you 27,000. Transport is a majoration, I repeat. So you add it. And what you are going to have is le montant. Le montant, so this HT stands for hot tax. It means we haven't yet added the TVR, any sort of TVR. So, and we are going to charge this hot tax, which is 27,280 at a rate of 20%. So this 20%, it's 20% of 27,280 will give you 5,456. Like always, TVR, we add 27,280 plus 5,456. It gives us 32,736. So the difference here is that when you are given, I repeat myself, I think for the third time, when you are given only a single TVR in the transaction and you have a figure of transport, what you're going to do is that le dernier net commercial, you're going to add the transport without calculating the TVR for the net commercial. So you add the transport, it will give you a figure, which is called, you can just write it as HT, which is hot tax, montant hot tax. Then you're going to find the 20% for the montant hot tax and add that 20%, which is going to give you the TTC. So I hope you have been able to at least see where the difference in calculation lies.
Can you just run through one more time what you just said?
Okay, so I'm going to start with the example above. We have this one over here. Is it the one? Nope. Nope, I think I passed it. So this is the facture, the first facture we have. So this is the first facture we have. And with this facture, we were given transport to us at a rate of 14%, and we were given another TVA at a rate of 20%. So what happens here, the difference comes in on how you calculate it per se. So for this one where transport is given to you at a rate of 14%, what we're going to do is after we have le montant brut, we have deducted toutes les réductions commerciales or financières. So we are standing now at either N net commercial or net financier. So in this case, it was 22,750 as net commercial. So what happens is that if you are given two types of TVR, two different rates of TVR, you are going to treat the first one, the 20%, onto le dernier, soit net commercial or net financier. So which is what happened here. We have 23,750 for the figure as our net commercial. And 20% of that is 4,750. So for this one, we've treated the first TVR, which was 20% of the net commercial. Then we have transport. Transport, the figure was given to us as 500. And we have 14% to be charged strictly onto the 500. So what happens here is that you charged 14% strictly onto the 500, which is why we don't add these two figures in advance. We don't add, because if we add the NC, the net commercial, and the transport in advance, then treat, let's say 34, let's say we add the 20% and the 34% and treat it onto the total of the net commercial and the transport. In this case, it will be wrong. So what is supposed to happen is transport, you are supposed to have an individual figure, which was 500 here, and an individual corresponding TVA attached to it, which was 14% in this case. So the difference comes in on how you treat the TVA, that's in terms of calculation. So for the first one, we charge the TVA onto the net commercial, and we charged another TVA onto the transport, respectively. Moving on to the second example, where you are given transport at the rate of 20% as well. Voila, c'est ça. So we had the transaction is about, sorry, I'm just drawing onto the calculations quickly. So we have the montant brut as 28,000, and we have the remise as 4%, which is 1,120. And the difference between those two gives us the net commercial. So in this case, we are given the TVA, so drawing from the transaction. So I read the transaction just for you to better see what I'm talking about. We have the transaction reads, vente de marchandises au client Hamza à crédit à 28 000, remise 4%, transport forfait 400, TVA 20%. So here we are only given one TVA, which is 20% of the actual of everything. So that is, it's the same time 20% of the merchandise. It's the same time 20% of the transport. So drawing on to the transaction, since it's the same figure repeated twice, we can just simply find the total between the net commercial, in this case, plus the transport. So the transport net commercial was 26,880, transport was 400. So we add the two, it gives us le montant. So this montant, HT, is the montant hors tax. So the HT stands for hors tax. It's 27,280. So then when it comes to the TVA, which is the part which is most vital, we were only given one individual TVA. So we are going to charge that one individual TVA onto the summation of the two figures above, which is the transport plus the net commercial, which is 20% of 27,280, gives us 5,456. And we add the two again because TVA, we add it, it's a majoration. It gives us the net à payer or le TTC, toute taxe comprise, is 32,736. So hope you've been able to notice the difference in calculations. Then moving on to the last thing. Where?
No, I just wanted to say it's clear, thanks.
Okay, avec plaisir. So moving on to the last thing we are going to do concerning the factures is something we call les emballages. So les emballages, these are packaging. So it starts all the way from wrappers, small wrappers, to crates, to bottles. Anything that contains a product is an emballage. So with les emballages, we have two main types of les emballages. We have the first one being les emballages per deux. So these are lost containers. These are containers which are in a case which are never returned to the customer, to the seller. So an example of this would be a wrapper of something like a biscuit, or a wrapper of something, or like a disposable drink. These emballages are never returned to the fournisseur. So there's never a case where you'd have to return the emballage to the fournisseur. So by that is that they carry no additional value. They carry no price tag added to them. I hope that's clear. In a case of like a wrapper for a biscuit, we have no instance where we take only a wrapper to a shop and in hopes to get a discount for buying the biscuit. No, it's never the case. Then going on to the second one, we have les emballages récupérables. So récupérable is just things that you get back. So these les emballages récupérables, these are packagings which are returned to the fournisseur. Example being a bottle of water, not these small disposable bottles, no, like a bottle, a large 20-liter bottle of mineral water. Those we used to exchange in for a new refilled bottle. So another example would be a glass bottle of Coca-Cola, a breakable bottle of Coca-Cola. When going to buy another bottle of Coca-Cola, we return that one and they give us a new bottle of Coca-Cola which is refilled. So that is the emballage récupérable, because we're taking back the packaging the goods came in and getting a small discount, so to say, off the actual price of the good without having les emballages. Another example, which is more practical here in Morocco, is a gas tank. So I'm going to buy a gas tank. We usually take our old one and trade it in for a new one, which is filled up with gas. That is an example of les emballages récupérables. So under les emballages récupérables, we have two things as well. So firstly, we have two main types, which is les emballages per deux and les emballages récupérables. Then under les emballages récupérables, we have two things as well. So we have les emballages récupérables identifiables. So the name just has an additional name, which is identifiable. So this one simply says that you are easily able to, it's defined as the emballages which we are easily able to identify. Like they have either a code or a color pattern, or they have categories of les emballages récupérables. So the first one is identifiable. So you're able to identify them either by their brand, no, not by the brand, sorry, by their color, by their code, something like that. So a clear-cut example would be a gas tank. I don't know if for the guidance, Saleh, I don't know if you've been able to pay attention, but gas tanks have a different color. like each gas tank has a different color which it corresponds to. So that is a way of identifying which type of gas tank we have in question here. Then the second one is 9 identifiable. So we have identifiable and 9 identifiable. And for this one, they are simply not easily identifiable. So in this case, we have bottles, that is bottles of Coca-Cola, bottles of, we have bottles, we have crates. So these are not easily, they have no code or certain color pattern which distinguishes them from another type. So that marks the end of les emballages. So the emballages, we just simply ran through it quite quickly. Bon, what we have here, les emballages also has, so I repeat myself, les emballages are, so all what we've done here is an addition to the facture. So a small example just for you to see where les emballages fall under in a facture. So as we know, les emballages are, they are, sorry. Les emballages are a figure which are majoration. So it means they add on to the actual price of goods. So here we have a petit example. It doesn't even have, well, we write the application. So we have montant brut as, so we have le montant brut as 2,500 and sorry, my network is okay. So we have le montant brut, which we have as 2,500. So this facture really skipped out a lot of stages, but you are supposed to know them by now. So we did all those réduction commerciale, we did the réduction financière, we added the transport, we added everything. So now we are at the point where we added 20% of the TVA. So 20% of 2,500 is 500. And we added TTC, which is toute taxe comprise, as 3,000. So les emballages are a figure which comes after the TVA. So les emballages are not attached to the TVA. So we place them after we found the TTC. The TTC is a figure we find after we have added the TVA to our figures above. So it's going to appear something like this. So this emballage, this figure for the emballage, it's usually given to us in the transaction. So judging from how they calculated it, it was given to us as 5 cases of, I don't know what, at 50 dirhams each. So what we're supposed to do to find the total figure, multiply the 50, the quantity, times the cost of an individual bottle, yes, which is going to give us 250. So les emballages, like we said before, they are an addition to the TTC. So from the TTC, the toute taxe comprise, our facture has advanced a bit more to where we have an addition of les emballages. So les emballages in this case are 250, and 3,000 plus 250 is 3,250, which would be the montant net à payer. So it's a figure, it's the actual figure we are supposed to pay for the goods in question. So I hope that's clear. So we have a bit of comptabilisation here as well. This is an issue of memorizing the comptes and see this stuff. Okay, so est-ce que vous avez des questions, des remarques, n'importe quoi? Je vous écoute. Okay, if everything's clear and one has questions, no concerns, no remarks, no places I should repeat on, I guess that marks the end of the call for the economics, guys. And yeah, thank you for your attention for the past 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So now that we finished the call, we're going to start the session d'étude. So I'll be sending work starting from the very first chapter we did. So we're going to go back this time. Start from the very first chapter. We'll start with the comptes, tout ça. On va avancer jusqu'à les factures. So I'll be sending work via the business group. Just pictures, I think. And I don't know if you'd prefer, I would like to see the work you guys will be solving. So you can either work in groups or individually. I don't know what best suits your needs. But the point is, each person is supposed to send over their work. Just the picture would do, just for me to counter check if you guys really understood what was going on throughout the school. So I don't know if you'd prefer to send the work back to me via WhatsApp or my email. I don't know which one would best suit your needs. Anyway, any of the two, ça marche pour moi. So for the economics guys, if you so wish to leave, you are free to leave, and thank you for your time again. So we continue with our call for the NCT guys. We are going to look at our last topic now, which is les effets de commerce. So les effets de commerce is actually, so for the NCT guys, we have what is called a control, and I think this doesn't concern the economics guys, so I might as well just explain it to you. So we have a control continu and l'examen final. So the control continu will have, it's an assessment which is added on to your final results. So what happens with this one is that you are going to have, a figure, but which is, you are going to have an exam. So the first exam. So the first exam is going to compose of things that we did before, like things like the balance, the grand livre, things like the bilan, things like the compte, just small questions. And in the examen final, that's why you're going to have more solidified information. So the examen final is strictly going to concern, well, for my case, it's strictly concerned the bilan, part of the bilan. Then we had, the rest of it was just the factures. So I think some time ahead, I will send over just some past papers just for you to have something to, just ideas of how things come. Because sometimes what really confuses people, it's not that people don't understand. It's maybe the fact that they are not aware of how to tackle questions. They are not aware of how, it's just like you're just learning. You're just learning. Then all of a sudden you have an exam. So if you're not able to relate the core to how the questions are posed in the exam, it becomes an issue. So I'll try to send over some past papers just for you to be able to have at least an idea of how questions are posed, because they're not quite exactly the same as how they are asked in the course. So the way we've had our applications, no, that's not the way. They try to twist, jumbo things just to, make things a bit more interesting. So moving on to our last and final topic of this Comptabilité segment. So it's a topic called les effets de commerce. So with me on the screen, I barely have adequate information, but there's a book I am with, at least what my professor told me. I'll try to read out, and just for better understanding. So The first thing is that les effets de commerce are a method of payment. So they are a credit method of payment. So les effets de commerce are a credit method of payment where two parties are involved, two or more parties are involved. So this works as, the effet de commerce works as an assurance for the furnisher. So it works, let's say if someone buys the goods on credit and you as a it's a first time client, so you don't really have trust in this person that he will repay at the date required. So you ask them for an effet de commerce, or they themselves, if they know of the initiative, they ask you if they can write to you one. So this one serves as proof, first of all, in a court of justice. Second of all, it serves as a means by which the furnisher would be able to go to a bank of a client and just ask for his money, instead of having to bother the client again, asking him, no, when are you giving me the money? He would simply, let's say we get paid on the 30th, on the 25th, and I get goods, let's say I get paid on the 25th of every month, I get goods on credit from someone, and I tell them by the 27th, you can be able to collect your money. So what happens here is that I'll write to my furnisher an effet de commerce. So it's like a bank order. So by this, my furnisher can strictly go to my bank, the bank I bank with, and ask them for the sum of money indicated on this effet de commerce. So in this case, he wouldn't even have to bother me by asking me for the money. He can just simply go to the bank, ask the bank to transfer the funds or give them to him. It's like a post-dated check. It's like a post-dated check, but as a means of payment. So under this effet de commerce, we have two main types. We have les lettres d'échange or les billets à ordre. So we're going to start with the lettres d'échange. So les lettres d'échange, c'est un document écrit par lequel une créance qui appelle le fournisseur donne l'ordre à son débiteur appelé le tiré de payer à une date donnée appelée échéance. So under this one, we have three people involved under the lettre d'échange. So the lettre d'échange, we have first person being the fournisseur, second person being the client, and third person being the beneficiaire. So the beneficiaire in this case can be the fournisseur at the same time. That's if the fournisseur wants us to pay to him back the money, or he wants, so it can be the fournisseur in a case where the fournisseur wants the money given to him himself. So in that case, the fournisseur is the beneficiary at the same time. In the sense that he will benefit the money at the given date. So another situation is where the fournisseur is not the beneficiary. So he cannot be the beneficiary in a case that the fournisseur also owes an amount of money to another person. So he can simply say, no, when it's the 27th, like the example I gave before, he goes to the bank, he asks the bank to pay another person, but in his name. So in this case, the fournisseur is not the one directly receiving the money, but is being sent off to another person. So like I said before, so three characteristics of lettre d'échange. We have three people involved. Like I just said before, we have le bénéficiaire, we have the fournisseur, and lastly, we have the client. So under this one, the second characteristic is that le lettre d'échange, it's the fournisseur who takes the initiative to write up this document and have the client sign it, and later on go to the bank of the client and demand for the payment. So with this one, lettre d'échange, it's the fournisseur who does everything. So the client here just accepts this lettre d'échange. So the fournisseur would write up the lettre d'échange, ask the client when he would like to pay. And when the date arrives, the fournisseur would go to the client's bank and ask for the money that the client owes. And the last one is the lettre d'échange est conservée par le bénéficiaire. So what this last one is that in either the lettre d'échange it's the beneficiary who benefits at the end of it all. So it can either be the fournisseur, like the first situation I've explained, or in a case that the fournisseur also owes another person, so he would direct the funds onto another person. So for this first one, lettre d'échange, est-ce que vous avez des questions? Okay. So drawing onto the billet à ordre. So this one is quite similar to the lettre d'échange. The only differences are who takes the initiative and the number of parties involved. So this one is also a method of payment by credit, where it's the client. So the person who is owing is the one who takes the initiative. So this one is a situation where the person is quite conversant of methods of payment. He's quite conversant of accounting. So he says he himself knows that he gets paid on the 25th, and he doesn't want to be bothered by the fournisseur on the 27th to say, no, pay me the goods, or maybe he would be leaving the country. So he leaves that initiative in act so that the person is able to get his money, even if he's not present, to give him physically. So what happens in this one, le billet à ordre, is that the client writes up everything, all the terms and conditions, and specifies the date, and simply gives it to the fournisseur. So at the date demanded, the fournisseur can simply go to the bank this person was banking with and demand for the number of funds that this person owed. So I hope you are able to see the difference between these two. It's in the issue of the number of people involved. The number of people involved here is just 2. So here we just have the fournisseur and the client. The fournisseur in this case is always the beneficiary aussi. And the issue of initiative is taken by le client. So the person who is the debitor, the person who owes the other person, is the one who takes up the initiative to put to enact something to be able to pay the fournisseur even when he or she is not present. So hope a clear-cut distinction has been made between the two. Okay. So moving on to just a bit of moving on to just a bit of comptabilisation, since this topic is really short. So like in this book, it was just the notes part or the theory part was just summarized as just 1, 2, 3, just 3 lines. But it's just a page. Even at school, you're just going to do it within 30 minutes or so and you're done. So here, when we have 2 things again, when it comes to comptabilisation, so that's when it comes to calculations. So for this one, for this book, we don't draw a document like a facture. There's no document which is called as there's no document we draw which is known as in effect de commerce. What happens with this one is that we just comptabilize the accounts. So it's an issue of mémoriser encore. You're supposed to know which accounts are involved, which transaction, how this transaction has played off, quelque chose comme ça. So moving on to la comptabilisation, juste une petite explication. We have la lettre d'échange et les billets à ordre. Oh, I'm reading from the screen where it says enregistrement comptable. The second point, or where it's number 2, numéro 2. So we have les lettres d'échange et les billets à ordre sont pour la créance des effets recevoir. So this effect recevoir, it's in the case where effect recevoir is to the fournisseur. So effect recevoir, it means the fournisseur has received a payment. Then effect payé, it means it's to the perspective of the client. So it means the client has given out a payment. So here, the contrepartie de ça, it's either cash or, so in a situation where a transaction which would read something like a client paid off an effect to a fournisseur by means of check. So what we have here is that the check account is going to decrease because we lost money from our bank, and this effect à payer is going to be debited. So the check account is going to be credited, and this effect à payer is going to be debited because this account has increased in value, and our cash account, cash or bank account has decreased in value. So
Sorry, can you just repeat that point?
Okay, so here we have 2 accounts. We have, so this effect recevoir is to the side of the fournisseur. This is when the person is receiving the sum of money. And this other one, which is effect à payer, is when the client pays out. So recevoir is when the fournisseur receives money, and payer is when the client pays off a sum of money. So like I was saying, for a transaction which reads something like a client paid off his debts by an effet de commerce by means of check. So what happens is that the check is what lost money. So we used check, we used our money in the bank, so which is our money in the bank decreased. So everything which decreases is credited, and every account which increases is debited. So if the bank account decreases because we lost money, this effect à payer is going to increase because we gained money. It gained more money, like this account, this specific account gained more money. So I don't know if that's clear. I know this is a bit tricky. I think which is why it is reserved as the last topic for you to be able to, you must have the logic of the comptes déjà. So is it clear, or maybe I should find another way of explaining it?
It's not, I don't know if I'm just not understanding. You're saying that the effet à payer, like that. Yes, this account is going to increase, but the money is coming out of the bank. So how is that, like if I'm the client and then I pay off my debt, the money in the bank is reducing because like I've removed from the bank, but then I'm just confused.
Okay, I get where you are lost. Let me try to shed more light. So what happens with these effect de commerce is that you treat it individually, like you treat the perspective of the client individually in full. So what would happen is in a transaction, so for the transaction part, I hope it's clear. It's a transaction where a client paid off his debts by a means of an effect de commerce on credit. So hope that's clear. So now what draws down to this one is that, so here I think the whole understanding of debit and credit changes a bit in the sense that it works under which account increases and which account decreases. So from that transaction, we are able to see that we have two main transactions. So we have bank and we have effect de commerce, payer, à payer. So we have two things here, bank and effect de commerce à payer. In the perspective of the bank, here we're going to redefine the whole principle of debit and credit by the account which loses is credited, the account which loses money is credited, and the account which gains money is credited. So this effect pay, it's an account. So if money comes from the bank and goes to the effect pay, so in actual sense, we haven't yet paid off this effect. We have just written it that we have paid off. But that transfer, because the money still stays with us, except we are supposed to show how exactly, it's like an anticipation of the future. We, like I said, it's a method of payment à crédit. So we ourselves haven't yet moved the money out of our business. So we are just going to reposition the money so that it's a bit more clear to maybe our manager for them to see how exactly we lost money. Because if we are in possession of goods already, well, let's say for the perspective of the fournisseur is in possession of goods already, so he's lost goods, and he hasn't received money for the goods yet, but he's supposed to write a transaction which shows the value of the goods he sold. This is just for clarity purposes, because if he lost goods, let's say goods like food, you're in a tuck shop, you are a seller in a tuck shop, and let's say food is missing and there's no transaction to justify how the food went missing. Our manager can just, or our employer can just assume we ate the food, or maybe we just used it, we misused it without having any proper explanation for it, which is why this transaction is made. So in actual sense, we haven't paid it off, but we have just written, we are just repositioning how our goods or our money has moved. So I don't know if that's clear, or maybe ça va pas.
It's a bit clear.
Okay, glad I could help. So for this stuff, I think we are just going to end it here, because so there's a book I am in possession with. These transactions, I don't think you'll be able to memorize, because if you just memorize them, you won't understand what really happens. So I'll try to look for the notes I have, like the polycopy I have is quite more detailed on how exactly we treat each and every sort of operation. For this one, they are just given to us as, so like for this one, you won't really understand this one, which is just right on your screen. You won't understand what really is going on, but they are just placed, because they're just placed as transactions. So I don't know if you'd prefer just to memorize them or really understand what's going on. But I think understanding would be better than just memorizing. So it's safe to say that we are done with Comptabilité, but we are going to have a session de rattrapage, another session just further on, maybe Monday next week or after tomorrow. That's if I'm able to print out the book I have, like put it on a PDF form. I'm able to scan it at an internet cafe or something, because shops are still closed here in Fez. So any questions, concerns, remarks, repetitions, any topics I need to redo?
For this particular topic, like for the time being, can you just like, I don't know if it's possible to like take pictures of this topic, and then like you send words so that we can refer to like you.
Okay, sure thing. I will do just that.
Thank you.
You are welcome. So if